Be careful out there. There's a war going on. I'm so sorry. Where are my manners? My name is MarthaWashington. I was born on June 2nd, 1731, on my father's chestnut plantation near Williamsburg. I was born first out of 8 children. I was very intelligent for my age, considering girls do not receive education. My dear mother taught me everything I needed to know. I enjoyed doing things around the house, such as cooking and sewing to help out. Although, when I was 18 years old, I started a family of my own. I married Daniel Pop Custis, and we had 4 children together. Although, 3 years later, 2 of my precious babies died. I still miss them like there's no tomorrow. Many years after the tragic death of my babies, the death of my beloved husband took me by surprise. Although I moved on, and on that one fateful day, I met George Washington. At first, he had a crush on his neighbor, but moved on as soon as she was married. He quickly fell in love with me and asked me to marry him. Although we did not have any children together, he still raised my children as his own. Because of the wealth we had, he wanted to send my children off to school. When Pasty was 17 years old, she died from an epileptic seizure. George always wanted to join the military, so he did. He became known as General George Washington. While he was always out leading the fight for freedom, I stayed home and took care of the house. One morning, he took me out to see the Delaware River. He showed me the boats and talked me through the Army's plan to attack the British. I think his plan was brilliant. That night, he and his army went out. Dear, I was worried about him, but thank the good Lord he came home safely. During one of the battles, I stood by him in front of the whole thing, cheering him on, and every once in a while even helping him fight. When we gained our independence, we needed a leader. We all chose General George Washington, and he became our first president, and I became the very first lady. We stayed in a home called Mount Vernon. We stayed there for about 4 years, and then after that, George wanted to go home, but the people wanted us to stay, so we stayed for 4 more years. Many years later, George died from a sudden illness. 1 year later, I freed all of the slaves we owned. In the year 1802, I died from a fever. Did you hear that? Excuse me a moment. George!